Kenny, we appreciate your time and thanks for joining us. Let's get to the news of the day. This just happened last hour. Chicago trades the number 1 pick to the Panthers. Just your initial reaction to that trade when you saw it.
Well, I just saw it, guys, flash across the screen. Thanks for having me on. Great to be with you.
Thank you.
Obviously a big deal with Chicago trading the first overall pick. I actually did the last Bears game along with my partner, Jonathan Vilna, and we had a discussion during that broadcast when it was apparent that either the Bears or the Texans would have the first overall pick, and it wound up with Chicago. But obviously they're showing faith in Justin Fields, and just on the initial look at it a few minutes ago, it certainly seems like they did well as far as what they received back with the package of draft picks and a terrific wide receiver in DJ Moore as well.
Since we started in the NFL, and we'll stay right there in that division, that's where more news is coming out today. Comments, I don't know if you've seen them, from Packers president Mark Murphy, basically saying they'll honor any trade request that Aaron Rodgers has, and it's sounding more and more like that divorce is well down the road. And it looks like it's the Jets. How much does all this change the balance of not just the NFC North, not just the NFC, but the whole NFL, with Rodgers going now to the AFC, if that's the way that things go?
Well, I did see that as well, the comments from Mark Murphy today, the Packers president. And living in the New York area, I've certainly been following the story.
Sure.
It's been in the headlines the last couple of days after the Jets. The owner, Woody Johnson, the general manager, Joe Douglas, the head coach, Robert Saleh, and the offensive coordinator, Nathaniel Hackett, got on a plane and flew from New Jersey out to California and visited with Aaron Rodgers the other day. And obviously he has a history with Hackett from his time in Green Bay. And, I'm having a little bit of deja vu because about 15 years ago, Brett Favre went to the Jets.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, fast forward, and it's Aaron Rodgers, who obviously took over for Favre and in Green Bay, and now it sounds like there's a good chance he'll wind up with the Jets. And boy, that AFC East next year is going to be pretty competitive when you look at what the Bills have been able to do. And I'm ironically in Buffalo right now for a hockey game tomorrow. The Dolphins with a healthy Tua, and then the Patriots. Obviously it was a disappointing end to the season this year for them, but that certainly does raise the balance of power in the AFC. And if in fact it is Jordan Love who takes over, unless the Packers make another move, certainly an interesting day or week in the NFC North with the Bears making the trade of the number 1 pick, and then Aaron Rodgers potentially leaving Green Bay.
Kenny Albert with us here, Cattles and Ramie, Sactown Sports. Kenny, as I mentioned, you are a man of many talents. We know you also call some NBA action as well. Just from afar across the country, are the Kings the best story in the NBA, or are we just kind of are we myopic here in Sacramento?
No, they are a terrific story. Unfortunately, I did not see the game last night. I was working a hockey game in Montreal, and obviously they beat the Knicks, who lost Jalen Brunson again, and now they've lost 2 in a row after a 9-game win streak. But no, it's been fun to follow what the Kings have been doing from afar on the East Coast, and hopefully for your listeners, they can keep it up into the postseason.
Have you been, well, obviously surprised by what the Kings are doing, but with the rest of the way that the Western Conference is shaking out, all of it seems to be, and I don't take joy in any injuries or celebrate them, Kenny, but everything does seem to be falling the Kings' way when you just look at the other dominoes around the conference.
No, it does. You're right. And those are obviously things you can't control with injuries. And then the load management certainly has an effect on certain teams, certain nights. But I haven't seen as much of the Western Conference teams in person this year. I did do a game out in Golden State, but have certainly watched from afar. And, in New York, the Knicks have been a great story. A team that overachieved 2 years ago, made the playoffs, took a step back last year. But Jalen Brunson, a guy that you guys have watched in the Western Conference the last 4 years with Dallas, he's been a major factor. He's helped raise Julius Randle's game back to where it was 2 years ago, and they've gotten some contributions from a number of other young players. So it's been a fun team to watch.
Last one for you, Kenny. We'll stick with the NBA here. Who do you think's the best team in the league right now?
Boy, that's a good question. I think, again, it's going to come down to health. Boston certainly has had a terrific season, although they lost a couple of games over the weekend. Out west, I'd say it's a toss-up. You guys could probably put a bunch of teams in a hat and pick one out, but it'll be an interesting race. I think, similar to the NHL in the West, there are 8 teams that probably think they can get to the Stanley Cup final out of the Western Conference and 6 in the East. So it's going to be a lot of fun watching both of these sports down the stretch over the last month and then into the postseason.
I lied, Kenny. I'm from New England. I got to squeeze a hockey question in. Who's the biggest threat to the Bruins?
The Bruins have had an unbelievable year. I mean, when you look at their numbers, they're on pace to set league records for wins and points. But in the East, there are a number of other teams that I think come playoff time, you never know. If the Bruins lose game 1, all of a sudden nobody cares about what took place in the regular season. But they're strong, so strong from the goalie Olmark on out with the veterans Bergeron and Marchand and Pasternak having an unbelievable year. Charlie McAvoy, and they made some great deals at the deadline. But in their division, Toronto and Tampa Bay are both going for it.
Yep.
They picked up a number of players at the deadline, both teams. Toronto hasn't won a series since 2004. They'll be matched up in the first round with the winner taking on the Bruins, obviously, unless they get bounced, which would be a big long shot. And then in the Metro, between Carolina, the Rangers, and the Devils, unfortunately, 2 of them have to play in the first round, so one will be knocked out. But all of those teams think they can go all the way. So the Rangers picked up Kane and Tarasenko, the Devils with Timo Meier from your area. Carolina made a couple of deals. So the Bruins, you would have to say, are the favorites right now, but there are 5 other teams in the East that made moves, significant moves, that think that they can get to the Cup final.
Kenny, we appreciate your time. Great stuff. Let's do it again soon.
Thanks, guys. Anytime.
Thank you. There goes Kenny Albert, of course, elite play-by-play man, all 4 sports, NFL
he really
on
does
Fox.
Do it all.
He does.